Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Saturday morning Wake and Bake Live, where we get raw, real, and loud. How is everybody doing on this Saturday morning? How's everyone's Thanksgiving? It is 9:01. Good morning. Today we are about children and cannabis, and why we feel that it is important to educate them on this topic, especially with how big and mainstream all of this is getting. Why wouldn't we want to give it to them from a reliable source, which is us? Like, I would rather my son come to me and be like, Mom, there was this like this white powdery substance at this party I was at. You know what I mean? Like any kind of thing like that. I'd rather him come to me and be like, what is that? Like, can you tell me what that is? Same thing with cannabis. There are so many people, especially here in Washington State, because we're an all green state. We got rec and we got medical. So here in the all green state, weeds everywhere. Like it is, dispensaries are popping up like Starbucks. I mean, I smoke, I educate on it. You know what I mean? Like it's everywhere. So why wouldn't I educate my son on it too? Especially because, well, I'm an educator at heart. But something I want to give you guys a little bit of backstory how I came out the canna closet. So I was in the canna closet for a while, and what I ended up doing, even in an all green state, like I can go down and buy it without a card. I went and got my medical card before I came out of the canna closet, because even here in an all rec state, I'm in a 50-50 custody agreement with my ex-husband with my son. And even though it's legal here, in some instances, depending on how it gets spun, that doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't matter that I went down to the store and legally got it. It was like, they'll come and look at your house. You know what I mean? Like he may not get taken away because it's a legal state, but even just the stress of them even coming into the house to see where I keep it. And you know what I mean? So if we can educate them on stuff like that, like my son's actually educated someone, he came up to me and he goes, Mom, so I was talking to so-and-so about what you do, and they said that all you do is get high. And I said, oh, if that's the case. I was like, well, that's sad because that's not true. I waited a little while and I went outside and medicated. And then I came back in the kitchen and I'm standing next to my son and I'm like, just talking to him, right? And he goes, huh. I said, can I ask you a question? I said, do I seem high? Like you explained? And he goes, well, no. And I said, didn't I just go medicate? And he goes, well, yeah. So next time that person said something, he goes, well, actually, my mom went outside and she came back in. But it's because I educated him on it. So therefore, someone was telling him that all it does is get you high, when I'm like, actually, and then I showed him evidence of it. And now my 9-year-old can go, well, wait a minute. You know what I mean? And then just educating them on things like that, I just feel it's so important. And education is key. That is the only way any of this stuff is actually going to make progress, is if we're actually properly educating on it. So me coming out of the canna closet, my book that I used was Weed Mom by Danielle Simone Brand. And that book was amazing because it was able to break it down by age. And I feel like that is important. I'm not going to go to my 9-year-old and sit him down and be like, I'm going to tell you about the prohibition and you're going to remember all of this. He's going to be like, what happened back
He's
then?
not even going to listen.
Exactly. But if you do it by age and make it fun, or like show examples of things, then they can go, oh, you know what I mean? And it's just, I don't know. It's important, very important to me, to just, because like I said, it is becoming so mainstream and it's everywhere. And I don't want my kid coming back and going, oh, Mom, there was this like green stuff that people had and it was like really stinky. And he was like, and then everybody was just like high. And then him getting that aspect, I'm like, okay, well, in that situation, I'm not going to lie. There are situations where Mommy can't smoke too much and she is like that. I'm not going to lie to you. It happens, right? But I don't want him thinking that that's all that it does, especially because it's so important to me and it has helped me so much. And I know Georgia actually has a really cool story about her daughter. It's mainly your younger one that really like gets in on it with you.
My little one's more vocal. I think she's like the little rebel of the fam. My older one is like a freaking 100% type A firstborn. She just wants everybody to love her and just be happy with her. So she doesn't really like to ruffle feathers. But my little one will get in there and ruffle feathers when it's available to ruffle. So the story Danielle is, or the story that, excuse me, you just held up that book and it made me think of her. But the story Amanda's talking about. So my husband was diagnosed with brain cancer in January. I feel like I'm on a record with that, but
that's okay.
kind of
Some
sets
people
the tone.
haven't heard it and they need to hear the story.
And my husband was a cultivator for Monterey Kush Co. Previously. He worked there 2 years before he was diagnosed. So my kids have been, once we went legal and Brett and I started dating, and it was more just kind of, you know, his job, it was much more, we needed to talk about it because it was around everywhere. So it wasn't like we could just pretend that it didn't exist and then you just move on. I mean, we talked about work, you know, so really care. She's not into weed. She wants to draw, you know, she doesn't care. Olivia, I'm like, girl, if I catch you smoking, we're gonna have a problem.
At some points you gotta know that it's going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You know, with my son, I'm telling you, you know, like I told Amanda, you know what you have left, like you know what's in that tray. I don't care how high you get. You know exactly what's in that tray. And if something is touched, you know that something was moved. And you need, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just set him down and say, look, I smoke, your dad smoke. I can't be mad at you for smoking, but it's gonna happen in the house. You're doing it with me. Whatever I have, I'll get enough for you. Don't smoke in the streets, you know, because even you have to tell them, because in the streets, they lace it. You know what I mean?
Do. Well, and not only that, but when you finally get to the destination of where you're going to go, you don't know where you're going to be. Like, it's not going to be like at your home. You know what I mean? So then what if it ends up being a situation where now you're freaking out and you don't know where, like, you know where you are, but you don't know where you are type
and
thing?
That's when trouble can happen, especially for girls. Especially for girls. You know, and it's the same thing with drinking. You know, I told them, if you're going somewhere, you know, and you have a glass, if you put it down, you leave it there. Don't ever go back to that glass. If you got to go to the restroom, you need to take it with you. It sounds disgusting, but if you want to save your life, you need to not. And I tell my
our standpoint in this house is, if you smoke weed, you're going to be in trouble. Because I'm a tiger mom. I am like I'm like one of those. I know it might come, and I'm prepared for it, but I'm like one of those, we don't talk about if it happens. I'm like, no. But I'm like, if you smoke weed, you're in trouble. If I find you drinking, you are beat your ass, never going anywhere again type of trouble.
But listen, Georgia.
But all the stuff I did that I really made really bad decisions and got really fucked up with was when I was drinking. So I try to say that to my kids. This is weed. You know, it does all the things that the drinking really does. It lets you relax, all these lies that they tell you that alcohol does, but you don't have the complete and utter loss of control and senses. And, you know, it doesn't, and you're never going to get too much. You're never going to, you know what I mean? It's not going to kill you, sort of a thing. And in our town specifically, we used to be the California pregnancy capital of the world. We were real good about that, teen pregnancy. So drinking, there are 3 things to do here: fight, fuck, and get fucked up. That's it. That's all there is to do.
Yeah.
And so we really try to, I make drinking like it's a no-go for me. Weed, how could I sit here smoking bowls all day long and tell the kid not to ever smoke weed? That's silly.
Yeah.
Right.
But drinking, mama doesn't do that because it's poison and it causes a lot of problems in, you know, you'll never find a successful alcoholic. Somewhere in their life, something is getting messed up.
Yeah.
But you will find successful stoners in spades. You know what I mean? They're just everywhere because that helps with the success. It hones it in sometimes. Us women with wild brains, I think you guys are
Yeah, I think it's key that we do talk to our children. Like you say, in different stages, at different ages, can handle different things. Because if you don't, somebody else will on the streets, and you don't want the streets to get in your parenting business. So it's your responsibility as a parent. And if somebody has a problem with this, that's your problem, because you need to watch your kids. Because if you don't, the streets will get them. Then you don't have no control over them, and that's a fact.
Exactly.
That's a fact.
Exactly. And informed kids make informed choices. That is just
They
the
do.
way it goes. If a child knows and understands, and it starts with trust at home. My kids trust me.
That's right.
My kids trust my
Yes.
judgment.
That's right.
They know I am here for them. I am, I may make decisions that piss them off, but there's generally a very, very good reason that I made that decision. And I am the type of parent, I'm an explained parent. I'm
Me
hard,
too.
but I'll tell you why I did it.
Me
Because
too.
open, honest communication and mutual respect is what allows us to be able to form a bond that says, when I say, hey, there's cookies in that, my kids were little, probably, I don't even know how little. And I would make edibles. I would make my batch of cookies. I would make a batch of regular cookies. I would put mine in a thing that said, not for you, not for children, on
Exactly.
top of it. And I would give them theirs. And I would show them. And I would say, listen, if you eat these, you will get sick. You will get so sick that I will need to take you to the hospital. And when we get there, the police will meet us there. And then the police will tell us that you're going to have to go stay with someone else because these
You
are
have to
not for
tell them.
you.
Yeah.
And if you get into them, I will get in trouble and you will get very sick. These are for you. Would you like some? You know what I mean? And just very
But
much
that's also
making them
like
aware.
but that's also a perfect jumping point too, because you can be like, this is for mommy, this is for you. Well, why? And then you can take this why and go, well, let me tell you now, like I said, it's to the kid. Now my thing is it's really hard for me. I was a teacher for I owned a daycare and I was a young children's teacher for a while. And it's really hard for me, especially with my son. I don't teach by age. I teach by mentality. Like I see where they are there first, because my son is 9, but he thinks like an 11 or a 12-year-old. Like he's a little, but then there was other kids like in my daycare. Like I'd have a 5-year-old reading reading for a 7-year-old, but then I'd have a 4-year-old on a second grade level. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so figure out your kid. But then once you figure that out, Georgia, that's perfect. Be like, well, why can't I have those? You're like, well, besides all of the things that I just told you that's going to make you sick, let me tell you why. And you could use that as a perfect jumping point, depending on your kid's mentality, and go, this is what happened. This is what happened. Like, and then even like I was doing it to Wyatt, I turned it into a situation. He was like, but that doesn't do that for you. And I was like, exactly, because, and then that's where you can and talk to them. My biggest thing when you talk to kids, don't be a superior. Speak to them. If you really want them to listen, get down to their level and speak to them like I'm speaking to these two.
Yeah.
Just sit down and talk to them. And just be
it's
like,
not what you
hey.
say, it's how you say it. I tell people
Exactly.
that all the time. Watch your delivery. Because if you come
Exactly.
to them, I'm going to tell you, they're going to be like, what? You know what I mean? If you sit down and say, look, here's the case, here's why, and you should not. And if you get into a situation, just happily tell your friends, hey, at this time, you don't have to carry on. Just say, at this time, I choose not to. You have a choice. You have
and
to
drop
tell
some
them,
education on
they're
them.
going to get into situations. They're going to get into situations where we're not there. And if we don't educate them, they don't know how to get the fuck out of it.
Absolutely. Well, and it's kind of like they are put in a position where they're having to make a lot of choices. I mean, kids these days, I feel so bad for them. I know I feel so damn old saying that, but there are so many things that seem to be having to be decided in high school it really falls along with like sexuality and your gender. That's so much more than it ever was before, that it creates a lot of like pigeonholing. Like these kids are like, you have to choose. What are you? Make a choice. And the same kind of thing. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. I liked a girl yesterday and then today that guy looks kind of hot. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I don't fucking know, And so it's like, even with weed, it's like you have to be able to have you need to do it. So it's like, you either need to give them the ability to say, fuck you, because that was me if I didn't want to do it as a teenager. Fuck you. I'm not doing shit. You can, whatever. Or, hey, dude, that's not good for you. Like, you do know that that's not good for you, right? Like, I get where you're coming from, and weed's awesome and cool and stuff, but like, we're too young for this shit. Don't you know that?
Right.
And being able to know.
Well, and on that too, like being able to talk to our kids, to be able to talk like that in return, what would make me satisfied is when my son would come home, like say he was in that situation and that was him, and he was like, dude, tried to offer me it, and I was like, nah. I would feel so like accomplished if when he came home, he goes, Mom, guess what happened today? I was at this party and he was open and honest enough to come back to me now and go,
that's when you know
hey,
you're doing your job as a parent.
Since you opened up this conversation, Mom, I can now come back to you with it. And that is just going to flow that conversation just so much more, not only with weed, but with a lot of things.
With everything. Well, and Lily, my oldest, she's 15, and she has always been very anti-weed. Like, she's like, I'm never going to smoke weed. I'll never do that. I'll never. It's only really been this last year since my husband was diagnosed, and we've been learning a lot more about the medical side rather than just the, you know, I mean, I always treated my PTSD and stuff like that with weed. I just didn't really cognitively know I was doing that. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know how it was really cognitively helping me. And now we do so much more. And so the other day I said something about it and she goes, yeah, I'll probably try it one day. Like, not now, Mom, obviously when I'm over 18, but you know, and I'm like, really? And she's like, yeah. And it jazzed me up. I was so excited because life is fucking hard. And she's a gay girl in this world, you know, and her dad left her and her stepdad's got cancer. Like, there's a lot there. And there's a lot of unpacking that is going to need to be done. And if she can do that with cannabis and being able, like, oh, the thought of sitting down and smoking a joint with that kid and being able to talk to her about her feelings when she's not like guarded, because she's really just being able to let it flow, because weed has that effect on you where it just kind of lets you like shit it all out, and then you're like, oh my god, it feels so much better. Like when you're drinking, it's you know, but when you're smoking,
you know what I got out of that? You got out of that you can't wait to smoke with her. You know what I got out of that? That you made it so normal and casual in your home. It wasn't a down her throat. You just casually talk about. But you made it so normal and casual in your house. She was able to, on her own, take all of the things that you were saying and go, wait a minute, okay, maybe. And that's what we need, is we need to normalize it like that. Right. Like, I have sugar. I have infused sugar in my cabinet, and it's for our coffees in the morning. And my son knows, don't touch it. That is not for you. Don't touch it. Don't go near it. He's like, Mom, I don't even go in that cabinet. He was like, but it was the same thing. I've talked about it enough, and I have educated him on the medical side and what it can actually do to you as a child. Like, it's not good. Like, their brains are still developing. That's why it's very doctor. Like,
I'm very assume that they know anything. You have to tell them. You can't say, well, I set this cup of vodka down here, and you can't assume they're not going to touch it. You have to tell them. You know, well, and just like weed, you have to tell them.
That starts another point. Is
Kira,
you
jump
have
in.
to educate yourself. You have to educate yourself with what it is that you are going to tell your children. So if you just smoke weed because it makes you feel good, that's fucking totally cool. I did it for 15 years. Fucking do it. But when you're approaching your kids, now's the time to learn why you do it. It's now time to go in and delve more into what, you know, I love doing this, but there's got to be a why, because nothing works this well and then there's no reason why. And then that can really open up your horizons to like, oh shit, you know, I've been smoking weed for over 20 years. I never knew about half the stuff I know about now. And granted, it's because my husband is now a medical patient. Truly, it's finally getting legalized, regulated enough that people are able to do studies off of it. And so there's a lot that we're at the forefront of information being able to come back out. But arming yourself with that education and being able to go to your child as being able to say, or your parent that doesn't like that you smoke weed, or your grandma that thinks you shouldn't be doing that. Educating yourself and be able to be like, hey, Mom, this is exactly why I do it. Have you noticed?
That's why this started. If you guys have ever went and read my story, that's why this started, is because I was in so many different weed mom groups and there were so many people shouting, I smoke, let's normalize it. But I'm one of those people that I'm like, well, why?
Educate somebody.
Why? But I'm one of those people, when I was a kid, I used to get in trouble because I said why a lot, but I wasn't one of those kids that did it on purpose. Like, there are some of those kids that, like, the same thing as like the mom, like, mom, it's like, why? Mine was actually like, Well, why?
You're just
Because
genuinely curious.
I wanted to know why. So then I went into these groups and I'm like, okay, well, it is good. Okay, I was finding a couple of things, but there were so many people saying that they did it, but I couldn't find why. I couldn't find what it did. I couldn't find where it did it. I couldn't find how it did it. And then me being an educator for the past 7 years, I went,
Kira, what do you want to say? Jump in,
So
Kira.
that is
Yeah,
actually where I can come in. My
Yes,
parents did me a solid. They did me so well in educating me about cannabis, okay? My mother uses pharmaceuticals. My father uses cannabis. And it's been like that my whole life. They're happily married. They've been married for 32 years. They've made it work. So my mother is terrified of it. She thinks that it's still a drug. You can still get in trouble for it. My whole life, she was totally secretive about it. One day in my teenage angst, I found my dad's stash in the back of his computer that he was building. I was with my best friend when I did it, and we made some executive decision to go downstairs and flush it. All of it. So I was just then like distraught. I was traumatized because I hadn't ever heard of it before this point, and I think I was like 11. And I was like, I'm gonna go stay the night at Desiree's house. I have to. This is terrible. This is terrible. Drugs are trash, or dare talk to me about this. This is terrible.
just say no.
Half an hour later, after my parents agreed to let us stay the night over there, my mom ended up calling Desiree's mom, and she's like, Wendy, you send her fucking ass home. Home right now. She knows what she did. I went home. I was so scared. And I straight up denied it. They sat me down at the table, and my mom's like, well, we're all going to jail. My dad's like, get out of here. He's like, I'm going to handle this. So he sat down and he was like, so you know how your mom has her pills for Xanax? She needs this. This is for her. This makes her a better mother.
Right.
This weed right here, this is hot. This grows out of God's earth. This is the people's plant. This helps your body straight out of the earth. And I was like, my dad would never lie to me. Never. And that was my experience. I never once spoke it to a soul because it was illegal back then. It wasn't decriminalized. It wasn't medical.
Right.
I never spoke it to a soul because I knew that my dad would not steer me wrong, not on purpose. And when I found out I was pregnant, I had my daughter. I'm a new mother, but I'm an older new mother. So the moment that I was pregnant, like I found out I was pregnant, I was like, it's going to be normal in my house. I'm not doing this shit that my aunt does where she hides in her bedroom and she lets the kids at school explain to her daughters what's going on. Because that's
what I don't want.
Desiree told me what I had found in the back of my dad's computer. I didn't know.
Exactly.
Well, and I think especially in non-legal states, that's a big thing too. I hate we're using the word legal because it's not legal. The non-regulated states. When you're in a regulated state, like Amanda says, you see that on a billboard. It's like need green, and so you're able to start conversations on the side of the road with your kids in the car, and you can do it that way. But when you're in a non-regulated state, you really have to be extremely careful about what it is that you're saying to your kids. And I'm not saying don't educate them. In fact, you should probably educate them more because you're at a greater risk. But I was just on a thing with Blunt Blowing Mama the other day and Danielle, and using the words like hemp, using something like that that's a little bit less obvious to the public when you're in a non-regulated state is probably the best way to go. But being secretive, so you find out at 11 when you're like already baked.
Right, my
pretty
girlfriend
much
and I are going through my dad's stuff.
Right.
Exactly.
Personal belongings.
Right.
We find it. This is why I
Right.
told this story, though. Okay. My dad and I had a great relationship.
Wait a minute. Kira, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you get in trouble for flushing that man cannabis?
Oh. So
did he beat your ass?
let me tell you that we had this big ass oak tree in our backyard that was rooting into our piping system. So we had plumbing issues like that were unresolvable. They wanted to know where the baggie went. I said I flushed it. My mom's like, "What the fuck? We better call the plumber, get a snake out here. It's all plugged up now." So that
You know
was
what,
actually
though?
what I got in trouble for was damaging the plumbing system.
Oh my
They
God, I
can't.
thought you were
They
scared.
couldn't really get you in trouble because you were just doing exactly what you were taught to do by the people you were taught.
But
My first concert was a
Dare,
Jethro Tull concert.
that was huge in Dare. Flush it.
Yes. So my parents took me to this Jethro Tull concert when I was like 7. I don't know if you guys know who Jethro Tull is. Wild 70s band. My parents are older.
I do.
So, yeah. So all of a sudden I start smelling marijuana, right? And my little 7-year-old ass looks at my mom and I'm like, "Is that marijuana?" And she's just like, "Yeah." And I'm like, I freak out. I start having what I feel like was my first anxiety attack. I spent the concert throwing up in the bathroom because I was terrified that all these drug addicts around us were going to all go mad and we needed to call the police. And like, what the fuck were we doing just sitting here allowing this to happen? And you know whose fucking fault that was? My parents.
They didn't
were
educate
never
you.
educating me the proper way. Meanwhile, my dad's over here like, I didn't, like, come on, But yeah,
That's a great example.
My mom will still laughs at that with my little stoner ass, and she's like, "Is that marijuana, Georgia?" We don't call it that anymore, Mom. Shut up.
In making this, in telling that story is my dad and I had an excellent relationship. We still do. He's my best friend. After he told me the truth about everything, he sat me down. I could see the seriousness in his face. This wasn't done through text, through writing letters. This was face to face at the kitchen table with my mom screaming in the background. He's like, "I love you. I never lie to you." I never in my life spoke those words to anybody. I knew my dad was in danger if I did.
Yep.
So talk to your kids. Tell them.
Exactly.
And I'll tell you something too. In California, when you walk down Hollywood Boulevard, if you bring your kids, you better tell your kids, because you can walk, they walk and they smoke in the air. Cops standing right there. As long as you don't drive, they don't mess with you. But they walk and smoke. So if you come into California and you want to go on that Hollywood Walk of Fame, you're going to smell a lot of cannabis in the air. And I'm not lying
Out
to
of
you.
Georgia husbands.
So if you don't tell them, they're going to be exposed to it, and they're going to freak out like Georgia.
Exactly.
And I just was doing what I had been taught to do, which was, these were fucking drugs. What were we doing? Why are we doing this?
Because you were taught it was bad.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's the same thing with Kira in the DARE program. That's what they taught us to do. I remember seeing police videos, like of us watching police videos, and the police are the ones that were like dumping it. And they're like, "If you find drugs in your home," and it wasn't just weed. It was like all of it. All of it was dump it down the toilet. So that's what she did.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'd be mad.
I actually
I'd be
won
mad.
the essay contest, and I got to I got to read my essay out loud for the DARE program.
That's actually awesome. It's like you brought awareness without bringing awareness.
Oh my goodness, I bet you I still have it, like all mounted on a piece of craft.
Please find it and post it in the group. I would like to see it. I'm sure everybody else here would too.
It was all about cigarettes, though.
That's the importance.
Anything but cigarettes.
Like Kira's saying, her dad was her best friend. And when you get these preconceived notions that other people are feeding your kids, and then all of a sudden, it's you. You're the drug addict. It's a very big, like, holy shit, that's such a very kind of shaking thing. So why not start while they're young to be able to be open and honest with them so that they don't have these crazy preconceived notions of reefer madness and you know what I mean? Like all the bullshit that really gets fed into them and it isn't actually factual at all.
But listen,
I was
guys,
talking to
believe
my
it or not,
husband.
believe it
Go
or
ahead.
not, it starts in middle school because when my son was in middle school, right here in California, he would come and say, he said, "Ma, them boys selling weed." And I'm like, "They selling weed in middle school?"
Yep.
He said, "Ma, they be in the bathroom at break time.
My brother used to
smoking out
sell
the
it in
bathroom
middle
and then
school.
taking off running when the teacher coming." It
Dude,
starts
it's
in middle school. So if you're thinking your kid don't know, yeah,
it's so much worse now too because of the vapes, because it's so much easier
with
to
the vapes.
conceal that.
Mhm.
And so these kids, I mean, I live across the street from the high school and I'm like that old ass, I'm this old lady now. It's so pathetic.
You are
I
not
went to that
old.
high school
Behave.
and I smoked weed on my school lunch break, but I did it at my house, here in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'll see him smoking and I'm like, you better get back to class, ladies, like driving through. Cause I'm like, girl, like, come on. But
At
it's
least
so
get back to
easy.
class. But
My
you're
daughter was in 7th grade whenever the first like vape started going around school. And it's like fucking 7th grade. They're like 12. They're 12 years old.
Yeah.
And what's scary about that is the cartridge, like the end pieces, where the battery is just a regular nicotine. They can get them as a regular nicotine vape battery from anywhere on Amazon. They can log into Amazon and order these, and then they go over there to their little buddy, and then they just get that little screw on top. And if anybody says anything, they could be like, well, I mean, you're going to get in trouble either way, but wouldn't you take the nicotine route instead of saying that it's the weed route? So now you're double lying because you have the vape. You're saying that it's nicotine when it's not. And not only that, those cartridges, if you don't get the correct cartridges, black market cartridges, I have been reading so many studies. They're putting vegetable oil in them with a little bit of THC, enough for you to get that smell, and it's vegetable oil.
Yeah.
Your child
and then
is
the way
going to
that they're
be
getting the
vegetable oil.
THC is like
That's
disgusting,
not the most alarming part. So vegetable glycerin is one of the main carriers in those carts. It's food grade, it's clean, and it's manufactured in a clean and like
regulated,
decontaminated, regulated facility.
Right.
Now imagine trying to pour this in your basement where you got mold spores, flying through the air. That's what people are doing, and this is what's giving people popcorn lung, or which is actually pulmonary fibrosis, and like it's pulmonary scarring.
Yeah,
it is,
and very severe, very deep.
And imagine at a kid's age, at 15, 16, smoking that and damaging
pressure.
their lungs.
But the pressure, though, too, that you're just gonna feel like your buddy's got this cool vape pen, and you're like, "Whoa, what's that?" And then you're gonna hit your vape pen, and you know what I mean. And it just spirals,
and then you get
from
high,
there.
and it's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, and you're too young, and you need to be focusing on the shit you need to focus on.
Well, like Jillian said, they were doing it in the bathroom. So imagine now it's probably just vape pens in the bathroom. Could you imagine somebody hitting a vape pen for the first time in middle school in the bathroom and now going back to class?
Like, you're basically taking the first experience with weed now is a dab. That's basically what you're doing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I remember my first experience with a dab, and I had already been smoking for a long time, and I took a fat nap right afterwards because it was a lot.
It'll knock you out.
But my thing is if we tell them about these things and we open this conversation about these things, Wyatt hits, that scares me that you guys say that. Wyatt hits middle school. This is next year is his last year in elementary.
Olivia's a 7th grader next year.
Yep.
It happens.
There.
Quick. But I would rather him come home, and so I vape. And I would rather him come home. So he knows about that. He knows the breakdown of nicotine, and like it can kill you, and it is. I break it down. That's just what I do. I also tell him that it is my choice. It's a very hard habit to kick.
You know what's funny, Amanda? I used to be a smoker, and I would tell my kids, nicotine has taken over parts of my brain and convinced me that I need it. And I am working on changing my brain back to understanding that I don't need it anymore. And it's a tough journey.
It is. Well, that's what I tell him too. I was like, I'm slowly trying to, but I just tell him that it alters my mind. You know, I'm honest with it. But anyways, to the point of that, I would rather him, like, say he comes home from school, I'd rather him come to me and be like, hey mom, you know that the vape that you use, he's like, you know, there's kids are in school about it. And the thing is I want him to feel comfortable coming into me as a conversation and not a tattletale, because I want him, because that's the kind of conversations I have with my son is like, something happened at school today. Mom, can I tell you about it? And it's not him trying to be a tattletale. It's him trying to understand. And I like that we have that because, you know, say the cannabis does come up in school and he hears about it. I want him to come to me and feel comfortable enough to be like, hey mom, this is happening at school, and talk to me about it. And then that way I can even educate him for him to turn around and go back to school and educate those kids next time that they try and
or a teacher
or see, you know what I mean? Like it's stuff like that though. Like I want him to turn
Cannabis
it.
Rocky has a good point in the chat.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible unless it's clean out of shred. Yep, that's what we were saying. That's what Kira was saying. Is Kira was saying that it has to be clean, because it can, like when you're transferring these liquids and oils, there's stuff, like Kira was saying, there's crap in the air and it's just going to get in it. And not only that, but the stuff that they're like, Jillian was talking about, like lacing, like, you know, you used to lace your green. That's essentially the new lacing, is how they're doing these oil cartridge caps.
Yes.
And also with the oil cartridges, so they use
yes, Rocky.
glycerin. They use vegetable glycerin or you know, a couple different types of carriers as fillers. So once you get bacteria or mold spores or anything in there, it's literally in a container of food. All it's going to do is grow.
Yep.
And get worse.
And just cultivate.
You're literally smoking poison.
And you know who needs to know that? Your kids. Just like that.
Exactly.
That is exactly how you tell them.
Exactly.
And when you start, when they're young, once they're that age doing that, you are able to say, it is poison, just like that. And be like, it is fucking gross. You cannot be doing that. It is yucky. You'll die.
Not good. You will die.
Yes, I love that though, because
and she does not know what dies means yet.
But, but that's how kids need to hear it from people they trust, and it starts with cultivating the trust and the honesty and making sure you're honest. Have you smoked weed before? You better never tell them no, because if you tell them no, you just lied, and now everything you say after that is a fucking lie, and they don't listen to you.
Exactly.
So you have to be honest, because then when you get to that point, you're like,
oh, they know.
You know? And then they can go to school being like, my mom told me, y'all are stupid. My mom told me that stuff is going to kill you. But whatever.
I'm waiting for that day. I felt like I became a parent so that my kid could tell other kids that their mom is stupid.
Yeah. It's your responsibility. But listen, it's your responsibility. I keep saying that because it's true. If you don't educate your kids, the street would educate your kids. Yep. And the
street just wants your kids to buy drugs from them, so
they
you don't want them
money.
educating them.
They only want money.
Started letting her smell it and touch it, and like I tell her, she calls it a flower. She's like, pretty flower. Like you want to smell it. I'm like, I love you. I love you.
I went up to Wyatt once. I just got a fresh jar because I get mine by the jars. It's cheaper if I do it like this. And I was like, I'm curious. Come here for a second. And I opened this up. I said, close your eyes. And he closed his eyes. I said, smell that. He goes, oh. And I was like, what are you talking about?
You know what's funny is when we do our weed reviews, I have Olivia and Lily both smell it because I want their opinion on what it smells like, because it smells different to me than it does to them. So we'll go around and be like, you know, it's banana cream. We're like, what's that smell like? And then they don't say bananas. And I'm like, fuck, man, that sucks. I thought they'd say bananas.
Well, something else that's cool about doing that, though, too, is you're kind of educating at the same time, though.
Absolutely.
Because like Jillian said, when you go down to the strip and just smell it, they can be like, oh, that's so we'll just use cigarette smoke just because I can't, like, oh, that's just cigarette, you know, like, because they normally smell it and see it. Like, it's just another step of normalizing.
Because 9 times out of 10 on the strip, you're going to catch a contact.
That's true.
Yeah, you're going to catch a contact high 9 times out of 10 on the strip because they walk, they smoke, and the kids are right there. You know what I mean? You got to talk to your kids.
And the good thing about, I think, the smelling thing too, is it opens up the terpene conversation. And then you get to talk about, you know, linalool is a terpene that's in cannabis, and it's also in lavender. And that's one of the reasons why cannabis helps you sleep. The same reason why lavender helps you relax. And it's very simple. You're never going to be able to break up no prescription drug down like that to a child to be able to make them understand why it is it's good for them. But you can with cannabis. And so you need to educate yourself on terpenes and on, you know, the different cannabinoids and your endocannabinoidal system and the different receptors you have, because then you're the expert that gets to tell your kid, because let me tell you, those other dudes don't know about it. They don't know about all that stuff.
No.
And so they're not telling that to your kid. And so they're either vilifying it, making it, or glamorizing it in a way that you don't want to, one or the other. And so you being able to be like, nah, bro, like, smell this. Let's go smell the lavender outside. Let's go, you know, even when they're little, like Kira's is. That's a perfect opportunity to be able to, like, let's smell this flower. Oh, let's go smell a marigold. This can be used to help your skin heal. You know, this, it's, and getting out in the natural world and being able to connect them. You know, we're in a very strange place in this country as far as our medical choices being something other than what some people want them to be. And I think it's very important, no matter what your side is, to know that there is a side that is plant-based that can help. And we are so quick to go to the doctor because the doctor has the right thing. Well, let me tell you, I have 3 friends that did heroin, and the way that they got every single one of them started was because they got injured and they got prescribed Vicodin, and then they fucking couldn't get their Vicodin anymore. And so they ended up getting fentanyl, and then heroin became cheaper. And then you know how one of them got off of it?
Too many.
Weed, because weed was able to stop that blinking light of addiction that's going, I need something. It was able to just kind of stave it off and get you back into that right state of mind. So the doctors don't know it all. And my husband has brain cancer. I talk to doctors monthly, a lot of them, but they don't know it all. And you have to be able to explain that to your child. They don't know it all. There is another route if you want to take it. You know what I mean? I have a friend, Christina. She has MS. She solely treats with cannabis, and she has for years. And is that right for everybody? No. Is it right for her? Yep. And so, you know, it might be right for somebody that she meets one day. And so you need to be able to have that open communication about pills versus plants, this whole, you know, kind of thing that's coming with this CBD boom. We really need to ride it and be able to educate our kids. And then you'll
totally agree.
The next generation is going to treat cannabis in a very, very different way. Our children will treat it in a very different way than we were allowed to.
I'll tell you something.
Right there is important.
I'll tell you guys something real quick. You know, when my son became an angel, when he passed away at 18 years old, went to the psychiatrist. He didn't even listen to nothing I had to say. He just began to write me a prescription for Prozac and la la la. But you know, if you take this, you're probably gonna hallucinate.
Sweep it away.
Sweep it away, just being la la land. I'm like, I'm gonna smoke my weed. I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna smoke. And like George, I'm telling you, if I don't smoke at night, I can't sleep. It helps me to sleep because I am already dealing with a trauma. You know what I mean? Absolutely. So you want to put me on pills so I can get into another traumatic state of hallucinating. Cannabis doesn't do that for me. It relaxes me. It keeps me calm. CBD helps me a lot. And I'm able to sleep at night, calm myself. As a matter of fact, I do my best work as an author as well. I have a steamy novel on Amazon. I wrote that book. My best thoughts come after I have a good smoke. And that's honest. I prefer to smoke than get on your pharmaceuticals. Because, you know, here's the thing on the pharmaceuticals, may cause you to have suicide, may jump off a cliff, you know, run into a wall. You got all these side effects. Only thing you're going to do on cannabis is a couple of things. You're going to have some good sex, you're going to eat out that refrigerator, or you're going to sleep.
You're going to sleep.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
Or you're going to sit and process what you've got going on in a very different state of mind than you would have before.
It helps
you know, when Brett was diagnosed, I went a little off in the beginning. It was it was like a crack in my reality. You know, the only way I can describe it is like my life was a filing cabinet and somebody just went like that, and the entire
All the
contents
file.
went everywhere.
It's
And I
traumatic.
had to figure out how to slowly put them back together, and I was never going to get them right back in that same place the way they were before. But I didn't want to die because I used tinctures. And like, you know, I wanted to die for a minute there whenever it first happened, because it's one of those, like, if it doesn't happen right now, it's going to happen eventually, and I can't take that, you know, like that's, and so cannabis really, while I watched it heal him when it came to inflammation of his brain, when it came to, you know, being able to eat again, when it came to just kind of being able to be himself again, it allowed me to not crack.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to be able to eat. And it allowed me to be able to go and hug my kids, because if not, I honestly know I would have been in that room by myself, and I would have cracked. And I was so like, oh, I'm gonna cry, but it makes me very like, I'm in awe of this plant, and I just want people to understand how amazing it truly can be. It is an awe-inspiring situation. It helps you in the ways of relaxing. It helps you in the ways of connecting. It helps you balance your homeostasis, which is basically just feeling good and being a good human. It makes you be able to be happy again. It makes you be able to laugh. It makes you be able to eat. Like, it's just such an amazing, it's so amazing. And I cannot think of anything else out there that we have on this planet that gives us as much as it does.
Yeah.
And so to not educate our kids about that, are you kidding me? What are we doing if we're not doing that for our kids?
You got to talk to them about it, because
Exactly.
I would rather my son smoke weed than come home drunk.
Yeah.
Oh, 17,
you know,
18 years old. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So, or sniff anything. You know what I mean? I'd rather you just, look, let me talk to you about this. This is what it does. This is what it do. You know what I mean? And this kid was asthmatic. And
So
I'm like,
I'm so sorry, Miss Jillian. I have to step off, but I wanted to end on by saying that I appreciate everything all you women do in educating everyone. I'm behind the scenes working for everybody in support roles, but I'm helping your journeys by telling my children what it is, by starting them early, by normalizing it in my household. I'm never going to have that bad conversation my dad had when I was 11 with me. Okay.
Yep.
That's my message to everybody. The
Amen.
thing you can do is just talk to your kids about it. That's the simplest thing you can do for this movement. I love you all. Thank you so much.
thank you so much. We love you. Thank you for jumping on.
Thanks, Kira. Rocky made a really good point as another really good jumping point that you could use as well. So I have ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADHD in the 90s when Ritalin was essentially crack. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So
we used to steal that from a kid we babysat. Isn't that fucking great? We used to steal the Ritalin and have the best time. That's the kind of stuff that happens when you send your kid to private school and don't talk to them about drugs.
And that's the thing about the Ritalin is I was on Ritalin for a while. I was on it 3 times a day. But then there was one time my mom took it, not having ADHD. She was like, I was scrubbing the ceiling. She was like, I was wiping walls with a broom. And she immediately took
when adults take it, it made them feel different from when the kids would take it. Yeah.
So my fast forward, I'm now older and I've used cannabis, and when you get older, you kind of learn how to work with it too. It's become part of my personality, to be completely honest with you. It's totally part of my personality. Anyways, fast forward, my son goes once a week to therapy. He did not take my husband and my ex-husband and I divorcing very well. So, and blended families. Anyway, so he's in therapy. His therapist was like, we think that he may have traces of your ADHD. We should. And I said, if you are about to tell me pills, I suggest you not finish that sentence, because let me tell you something. No. And
they
then
love to put kids on drugs. They love to. So
I I took that time right there to not only educate my son on why he will not be on it and why he is on CBD. He is on broad CBD. There's no THC in it. He takes one little gummy a day. Because, and then I broke it down for him, but not only did I break it down for him, I broke it down to that therapist. And I said, let me tell you something coming from a child from the 90s that was on that Ritalin 3 times a day. I was a zombie. I was getting in trouble still, but this time I wasn't getting in trouble because I couldn't sit in my seat and because I had to keep yapping my mouth. It was because I was so hyper focused on one thing. I had no idea what was going on around me. I was just like this. Wow. They're like, okay, let's sit in class, kids. Let's read the book. When you get to here, let's stop, and then we'll have everybody read a sentence, right? And you go around the room. I would always get in trouble because I did not know where my sentence was because I read ahead because I was so focused on that medication. It killed my personality. Killed my personality. I was just like, mm-hmm.
Well, and think about the things that it did to your brain too. You know what I mean? In that developing stage, really.
That's what I told his therapist, and then I brought in, and she was like, "Well, what are you going to do instead?" And I said CBD, and I broke down CBD with ADHD in adults and with parents with her. Like I sent her links. Like I had this email all typed up. I am not joking. I was like, no.
Educating yourself so you can educate your kids.
Exactly. But then but it was nice because that email that therapist sent me back, she goes, "Oh, sounds good." And she was, because I broke it down and was like, there's no THC in it, but this is what the CBD does. It's not going to affect his developing mind. But I did. I educated myself to turn around and educate her. And now that therapist knows, and now it makes me wonder next time a kid comes up and has ADHD, it makes me wonder in my head sometimes I wonder if she goes, maybe CBD.
Maybe we can do bad.
Just because I educated, and like I didn't even get bad flack back from it. Like the email back was kind of like, oh.
Yeah, they need to read. Reading is fundamental. You'll learn something when you read.
And now my son asks for the CBD. He'll ask for them in the morning, like if I forget or something, and he'll go, "Mom, I forgot my nano," or "Mom, do you have my nanos?" Because I asked him, I waited for a week and I asked him, I said, "How do these make you feel?" He goes, "I feel a little bit calmer, like I can control myself a little bit better." So it doesn't kill his vibe. It doesn't kill his energy. It is not eating at his brain. It is not mentally developing him anyway, but it is slow enough for him to be able to go. Because he's like me. We want to go, do, get it done, right? But he's now able to, and now he's able to do like what I do with THC. So we slow down just a little bit, and now we can prioritize.
That's what you do, exactly.
That brings out a good point too, which is when you find out that your child is consuming THC, what do you do? And I feel like the best thing to do is to ask them, first of all, where'd you get it?
Yes.
Where in the fuck are you getting this stuff from? And it better be from our backyard because that's the only place it's safe. And the number 2 question is, why do you think you're using that? Like, why do you think you need that? Yeah. I want you to be able to sit down and have an intelligent conversation with me so that you can explain to me why it is that you feel that you need this. Is there something going on?
And you know what? That's important.
There is, you know?
Yeah, that's
right. And you doing that puts the ball in their court. Right. So now they don't feel like you're going to sit there and be like, "I can't believe that you did." Yeah. You know what I mean? Like some parents sit where you just go, "Wait a minute. Why?"
That brings the next step though, which has to be followed up with, you better shut the fuck up and listen to your kid. You need to be quiet at that point. Yes. You need to keep your opinion to yourself, and you need to, with an open and caring mind, sit and listen to your child and be able to hear them, not just hear them. Because if they're willing and you guys have created that, then let's roll with it. But you can't jump over top of them then and blah, blah, blah. You know, you're going to have facts because kids like facts because they're little information getters.
We have to continue this again, but I want to say something before we go. Amanda, let me see that shirt. I love your shirt. I can't see the logo.
Turn around.
Yeah,
Kira that was on here actually made it.
Turn around.
I love it.
How weed and witchy is that?
Yes,
But really quickly, because there's only 13 seconds, there's a link in my Etsy for the shirt. Kira made it. That was just on here. But Georgia, you are absolutely correct, because that's the thing, is you want them to come to you and talk to you, and you need to listen.